Hey YouTube, Kira Qualia here, bringing you all my Cardfight Vanguard Shiranui deck profile for March 2024. This is for the release of the Stride deck set Shiranui, introducing Dominate and G-Unit Stride into D format in the form of Shiranui Oboro for the newest Stride deck set. We did the deck profile on Luard, now showing my take on the Shiranui deck. Big thanks to my buddy Nick, along with the opening, also letting me borrow the deck for the deck profile. But the overall playstyle, and also in tune with some of the Dragon Empire cards we run in the deck, definitely do help for a very pressurized deck of being able to use your opponent's own rear guards to attack into your opponent's Vanguard, and even being able to use your opponent's Vanguard to attack as well. So let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. So we'll go ahead and start off with the ride deck. Our starter is Stealth Dragon Madoy. When rode upon, if you went second, draw a card. Our grade 1 is Stealth Dragon Seizui. When placed by riding from Stealth Dragon Madoy, draw a card, and you also get the Demon Stealth Shiranui Oboro crest, which we also run, which it is kept outside of the deck. A lot of you didn't know if this is where the crest was kept, but yep, it's just placed outside. You can keep it with your Stride Zone or your additional ride deck cards, and then just place it when you ride into your grade 1. Our grade 2 is Stealth Dragon Genkai. When rode upon by a grade 3 with Demon Stealth Dragon Shiranui, you may call this card to rearguard. If you called a card, soul charge 1, choose up to 1 unit card from your opponent's drop, and your opponent calls that card to rearguard. So more set up for those drop zone units. And when a unit is for that card, being our grade 3 Shiranui Oboro for the last copy in the ride deck. Before we get to the rest of the main deck, we'll go over the crest for Shiranui as well. It allows you to perform Stride, the original power of your grade 3 cards with Shiranui, Demon Stealth Dragon, become 13k, and during your turn, if you have a grade 3 or greater card with Demon Stealth Dragon Shiranui, all your front row gets +5 for each phase of card in your G-Zone, and then the unique skill is during your turn, your opponent's units placed by your card's abilities and units dominated by you lose all their continuous and auto abilities and get +5,000, having additional power on top of it so your opponent doesn't have to activate or won't be able to activate any of their card abilities. For the Stride Zone, which we'll also go over before the main deck, we're running the 4 copies of Evil Eye Hades Emperor Shiranui Mukuro, needing a grade 3 with Demon Stealth Dragon Shiranui and its card name to discard for the Stride cost on Vanguard Circle. It also has Dominate. Act once per turn, GB2, Soul Blast 1, choose one of your opponent's rear guards, stand it, and dominate it, and attack your opponent's Vanguard. And at the end of that battle, stand and dominate all of your opponent's Vanguard, and they attack your opponent's rear guard. So then swinging into the unit that just attacked into your opponent's Vanguard, and then also being able to swing with your opponent's Vanguard into one of their own rear guards and perform drive checks with your deck being the cards you drive check with. And then also the 4 copies of Magen Tembu for just needing a grade 3 or the sum for this card's Stride cost. Dominate, Vanguard Circle once per turn. You can counter +1, turn a card from your G-Zone face up, choose one of your opponent's rear guards, stand it, and dominate it. It attacks your opponent's other unit, and retire that dominated unit at the end of the battle. So a pretty simple, standard way to enact Dominate, but you'll also be using your main go-to grade 3 Shiranui, which doesn't have Persona Ride, but it does need to be discarded for the cost, which we're running 3 additional copies of. So we have enough of a resource to use when going into our Mukuro Shiranui Stride. With this card, at the beginning of your ride phase, choose up to 1 card from your opponent's drop. Your opponent calls that card to rearguard. At the end of that turn, retire that unit. So this just gives you a rearguard to be able to dominate and attack with. And when your G-Unit strides, choose up to 1 of your opponent's rear guards, stand and dominate it. Until end of turn, it gets +4 and attacks your opponent's other unit. So it has the +5 from your crest, the +4 from this card as well. So hitting for some at least guaranteed numbers against your opponent's Vanguard to begin with your grade 3. We also run the 3 copies of Stealth Dragon Shiranui. If a unit dominated by you attack this turn, it gets +10,000 for its GB2, and when it's discarded from hand while paying the cost for Stride, you draw a card. Pretty standard grade 3 added backup. Along with the Stealth Dragon Shiranui, I also run 3 copies of Peeling Dragon Billovris. When it's placed on rear or put in the guard circle, you choose up to 1 grade 4 card from your hand and reveal it. If you revealed a card, or if your Vanguard is grade 4, perform one of the following according to the circle this unit is on. So this works with your Strides being grade 4. When called to rearguard, you choose one of your opponent's rear guards, retire it, and this unit gets +5 to end of turn. On the guard circle, it gets +15, and when this card is discarded from the hand while riding from a grade 3 from the ride deck or paying the cost for stride, draw a card. So on top of Stealth Dragon Shiranui, it's also a retire option on the rear guard, but also an additional discard draw for when you're paying the cost for stride. Being a grade 3, it also makes up for the entire cost to begin with. For the grade 2s, 4 copies of Stealth Dragon Farai. This unit gets +5 for each time a unit dominated by you attack this turn. And when your Vanguard attacks, if a unit dominated by you attack this turn, you can Soul Blast 1 and stand this unit. So you just have a GB1 to be able to stand a rear guard and have multiple attacks to swing with as well using this card, as long as you have these Soul Blasts to use as well. And then also the 4 copies of Stealth Dragon Sekie. When your Vanguard attack unit dominated by you attacks, you can Soul Blast 1, stand this unit. If your G-Zone has 2 more face-up cards, draw a card, and this card gets +10. So the more you go into the game, the more power-up you have thanks to your crest, and also this unit just gaining additional power because of it on top of that. For the rest of the grade 2s, 2 additional copies of Stealth Dragon Genkai. You have the +10 and boost option that this card can provide. I was debating on whether I wanted to use Genkai. I even considered swapping in 2 copies of Stealth Dragon Togachirashi for the discard cost for when you're riding in the ride deck. When it's discarded from hand during your turn, you can also just put this card in the soul. So even if you discard it for the stride cost, you have the added option for placing this card to build up more soul to use with some of your other cards, including the cards that need the Soul Blast power to be able to withstand and have multiple attacks. I also run now, moving on to the grade 1s, 3 copies of Stealth Dragon Tenrei. When placed on rear guard, if you have a Obero Crest, counter +1, draw a card. And when this unit, when a unit dominated by you hits, you may return this card to your hand. So this could also be a potential thing to drop out for Togachirashi if you wish. It's more of a return to hand. But as I said, the soul buildup is pretty important in the deck as well to at least be able to have your other grade 2 rear guards restand for power. Also, 4 copies of Katarigitsune. This is a card that can search out Stealth Ninja Shiranui Obero back to your hand. So you can have it for the discard cost of Mukuro. And when paying for the cost of stride, use card can be discarded as a grade 3, so you just have easier costs for your stride to begin with. And also 2 copies of Stealth Dragon Zonki. It gets +5 each time a unit dominated by you hit this turn. And GB1, when your unit attack hits, once per turn, you can Soul Charge 1. So another Soul build-up card to rely on as well in the deck, with the last of my grade 1s being 2 copies of Red Jewel Beast Gunlet. It has a draw option on rear guard by returning cards to your ride deck, and also getting +15 until end of battle when placed on the guard circle. And then lastly, for the grade 1s, the 4 copies of Stealth Dragon Utsuroi, just for the Sentinel of choice being the Nubatama one, and also having the, 1 or less card in hand, not having to pay the discard cost for your Sentinel. For the trigger lineup, we're going with the 8 criticals, so 4 copies of Burning Flail Dragon and the Stealth Dragon Maruwazu, just to fit the aesthetic of the deck, with our other trigger lineup being the 3 copies of Flare Veil Dragon for the draw, with the additional 5k shield, and lastly, the 4 copies of the heal being Stealth Dragon Shigitan, and also our Dragveda for the over-trigger choice. No better pressure than even just being able to restand a Vanguard with triple drive with this deck also. But that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoyed. And as always, until next time, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. And Kira Qualia out.